The hotel is located in the mountains in Malaysia, 1 hour from the capital, Kuala Lumpur. Our reporter, Paul Bobrovsky, was actually able to book a room in advance. The pictures on the online booking page actually look pretty good, but the mostly negative reviews like "never stay at this hotel" or "creepy" give the impression that all may not be well.
It should be here somewhere, but it really doesn't look inviting.
Our reporter has doubts whether he can really stay here overnight. Fortunately, the hotel is signposted. There is no mobile phone reception in the mountains and visibility is bad.
That seems to be it.
The Amber Court Hotel is actually only 25 years old. But the 23 floors on both towers look completely run down and quite deserted from the outside. Can we really check in here? We try to get into Tower B via the parking lot. It looks more like the apocalypse than a relaxed holiday hotel. And who just leaves their car behind in a hotel car park? The car next to us has probably been parked here for years. It's even covered with moss.
Well, I'm not sure if this is such a good idea to park here. Wouldn't want our car to look like this.
What has happened here? On our way through the car park, we don't meet a soul. But we do meet more discarded and looted vehicles. We try to find a way into the building, but even the stairs have seen far better days.
Oh God.
On the next floor, we find our first hot trail, next to dozens of rusting motorbikes.
Well, there really do seem to be people still here. But who hangs up the laundry in the underground car park?
Quite bizarre, but a glimmer of hope. Nevertheless, most doors and floors are locked or lead to a dead end. And then finally, a lift. According to the booking page, the lobby is on the 4th floor. But it looks like Paul got his hopes up too soon.
That's really strange. The display changes constantly, but the keys are dead. Somehow, the lift doesn't seem to stop here.
Via an emergency exit, Paul finally gets to the 4th floor.
Well, it looks like there's a lot of action here. Is that the hotel lobby?
The lobby, check-in. There?
We seem to be in the right place. There's even more business than expected. But instead of a hotel lobby, we find a small shopping street. From a clothing store to a hairdresser, a kiosk and a laundry. Are these all hotel guests who are shopping here? Paul gets to talk to shopkeeper Shemshid. Hard to believe, but he's been running his little shop here for years.
Most of those who come here are local construction workers. The prices in the center of Ginting are too expensive for them. They can buy cheaper from me. There are ghosts here. My buddy told me once that he was alone in his room and suddenly he heard children's voices. But there are neither children nor families here. That's why I never leave my room when it gets dark.
A possible explanation for why the building is half deserted. But now we really do want to find the hotel reception. There is no one there. But in the corridor, we meet a hotel employee who opens a separate room for us to check in. She assures us that the hotel is popular, with weekend tourists, for example. There are many Chinese and Japanese people who stay, but mainly Malays. Only now, because of the pandemic, almost no one is here. But in December or on holidays, we are actually always fully booked. The hotel acquired a kind of fame 3 years ago, and since then it also seems to attract horror fans. This is because in 2017 it was the backdrop for the Asian horror movie Haunted Hotel. Well, they probably didn't need to change very much for that. So far, we haven't met any other guests in the corridors. Paul cautiously looks into his room on the 22nd floor.
Well, I'm positively surprised. Sure, a bit old-fashioned, but much better than expected.
We really didn't expect that. 2 spacious rooms with a bath and a shower, and even a small fitted kitchen and a big clean bed. Cost per night, about 30 euros. The highlight, 2 large balconies with a view.
From one second to the next, a massive cloud suddenly covered everything and you can't see a thing. Above all, it's really spooky here, even during the day. I can't wait to see what it's going to be like at night.
Night follows our first day of exploration. We give up the search for other guests for today. Let's see what a night at the Nightmare Hotel has in store for us.
Well, I've had a rather mixed and above all cold night, because unfortunately there's no heating here. The atmosphere in the room is almost a horror movie cliché. The doors have been rattling all night long, but that's probably more because of the cold mountain wind whistling through my room the whole time.
After an adventurous night, we continue our search for other hotel guests from Amber Court and want to find out what brings them to this unusual place. In front of the main entrance, we discover a group of young men. One of them is Malik. The 35-year-old tells us that he has been living in the same tower as Paul for a year and a half and invites us to his room. On the way there, he explains that there are many permanent guests like him living in Amber Court. Despite the fact that there's a creepy room on the cursed 13th floor.
This is the room we heard that have inside something. You see the sign of Chinese people, they put sign. They done magic or room, the ghost will can't go outside. Actually, this is not allowed, but we have to make quick and go back.
No one knows what exactly happened in that room. Since the last resident reported paranormal activities 5 years ago, the room has been locked. Malik lives 5 floors up and his room is really busy.
Hello. Hi. Please come.
But this place does not look like a hotel room at all.
In this room, we're living 6 people. I never sleep alone in hotel room. Because we heard about the ghost like this, we afraid.
Malik works for a taxi company in the Ginting Highlands and has rented a permanent place in this shared hotel apartment. Together, the 6 pay the equivalent of 300 euros per month. The Amber Court offers not only hotel rooms, but also apartments for people who work here in the area. But Malik's taxi colleagues don't like that idea.
If after midnight, he get passenger for Amber Court, they don't have to come here.
Could be because of the apparently blood-stained facade. Malik leads us to the balcony and shows us that the hotel operators are already restoring and repainting Block A across the street. Malik explains that the frightening red spots are only the result of the humid climate up here. The whole complex is infested with red algae, just like many of the abandoned cars in the car park.
Reason some owners gone.
They're here because some of the owners have disappeared. They could no longer pay their car tax or were illegal immigrants and got caught.
Then he tells us most holidaymakers come to the Ginting Highlands to gamble in the only casinos in the country. The amber cord around the corner was also supposed to benefit from this. At least that was the plan. But the huge First World Hotel is right next to the casinos, so others can hardly compete with it. That's why there aren't enough guests at Amber Court either. Only the income from permanent guests like Malik saves the building from complete decay. But even if Amber Court was soon to get a makeover, Malik and his friends just don't trust the place and even adjust their leisure plans accordingly.
During the day, we've no problem going outside. Actually, we only go out to work. Otherwise, we play cards up here.
So you don't go out when it's dark?
Yeah,
walk
we
around.
don't.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Okay, it's safer here, right?
It's safe here.
So, the Malaysian Creepy House is indeed an international hotel, where people even live and shop. It's a matter of taste, but quite definitely out of the ordinary.
For 50 years, this remote village in the Italian region of Abruzzo was abandoned, a run-down ghost village. Now, it's a very special hotel. And not just one individual building, but half the entire village. The conversion of this former lost place into a village hotel cost around 10 million euros, and there are no new buildings at all. The old was to be preserved everywhere as far as possible, just like in the good old days. Along with the tourists, normal inhabitants have also returned. They've repaired the rundown houses that belonged to their families. The hotel operator's mission: bring the village back to life. The hotel guests should live door to door with the real inhabitants and get to know the old Italian traditions. In a baking course, for example. 2 days before, we set off for Santo Stefano di Sessanio. We want to know, what's it like to live there as a guest? First of all, you go to reception, just like in every hotel. Here, it's in a former cattle shed. Hotel director Nuncia gives us the key, probably the biggest in the world. We'll be meeting Nuncia later. Our rooms are in this converted outhouse. Obviously, we want to check them out first of all. The old outhouse is now a suite with a living room and 2 bedrooms. It costs about 500 euros per night, but there is no trace of luxury. It feels like you've travelled back in time. There's no television, radio, or a minibar. You won't be able to find anything made of plastic either. Even the light switches are the old-fashioned ceramic type. Some things seem strange to us. The shower gel, for example.
Kind of flaky, like it has gone bad somehow. Almost broken, or what do you call it? Yeah, broken sounds good.
Look at the bed.
What is this?
We're sleeping on a wooden board.
No slat frame or anything?
Nope.
That's pretty rough, isn't it?
In the truest sense of the word, because the mattress is not much softer. But that's not all.
Do you see any heaters in here? Nowhere. The nights are freezing cold up here. We're at 5,000 feet.
Well, this really feels like time travel. Our hotel village is not the only one in Italy. There are about 80 of them. This type of alternative hotel has a name: Albergo Diffuso, translated scattered hotel, precisely because the hotel is scattered over many buildings. The most important feature, an Albergo Diffuso, is not newly built. It consists of old buildings that have been renovated especially. They must be located in an old town and may not be more than 300 meters apart. Structural changes should be kept to a minimum. New buildings are not permitted. The idea came up in the 70s when many remote villages in Italy were abandoned by their inhabitants after earthquakes, or because of lack of job opportunities. At the moment, however, the alberghi diffusi are becoming a tourism trend. Even large tour operators are planning to rebuild run-down villages. But our Albergo Diffuso wants to offer even more than others. The guests should get to know the real Italy of old. Financier and owner Daniele Kilgren has even higher goals. He's put almost his entire inheritance into the hotel project, and it's been a financial success. At the moment, he's in Africa as a development worker, so we can only speak to him on Skype. I believe it's important to show that it's possible to earn money with such a cultural project. We all, whether Italian, German, American, English or Japanese, always think that business and culture are two totally different things. But that's not true at all. And then for me, it's important to make money in an ethically correct way. When Daniele is not around, Nunzia is the boss here. Although until recently, she had no idea about the hotel business. Nunzia was a scientist at a museum, and because she knows about history and comes from the mountains here, hotel owner Daniele offered her the job as manager. Her most important task? To make sure everything is and remains as authentic as possible, like it used to be, right down to the scent in the room.
This is actually one of the secrets of our hotel. Before a guest arrives, we use this special room spray which we have developed especially. It smells of chimney embers and citrus fruits. That's what it used to smell like here.
Because people used to throw lemon peel into the fire as a natural room fragrance. The spray uses no chemicals, just like everything else here.
As you can see, we've really paid attention to every little detail and researched every part and every product carefully. Our soaps are made exactly the way the housewives used to make them, from beeswax and olive oil, without emulsifiers, without artificial fragrances. This also applies to the liquid soap, of course.
This explains the apparently broken shower gel. It's not gone bad at all. That's simply what soap or shampoo looks like without chemicals. The hotel beds are also intentionally made the old way, hard and with woolen blankets that take 2 months of handicraft to make.
The beds in the past not only used to be harder, but very high, as you can see, so that poorer people could have their cattle lying underneath them, which worked like a heater from below. And because people were also smaller then, they used this wooden step to get into bed. Guests can also do that in our house.
Nunzia shows us her favorite suite, because it demonstrates most clearly how people used to live in the past.
Here, for example, you can see the black sooty walls, which are typical for the area because everyone used to heat with fireplaces here. We left them black, although everyone said we should paint them white. Another thing about our conservative restoration work is the small windows. We deliberately left them so small. They used to be made so small because we are in the mountains and it gets very cold. The only new element, as you can see, is this designer bathtub. It resembles an old washing tub.
But the expensive designer bathtubs in the rooms aren't the only luxury we discover when we take a closer look. There are elegant fittings. minimalist design lamps. And to the relief of our freezing cold team, underfloor heating everywhere, even in this former sheepfold.
On that floor without underfloor heating for €150 a night.
I don't think there's any underfloor heating.
Wait, you think? Yes, there is. They told me they lifted up, put the underfloor heating underneath, and then put the original floor back on top. That's right, that's why it's €150 a night.
We also discover the well-hidden controls for it. So not everything is exactly like it was 100 years ago. Otherwise, the guests would probably stay away.
Our project is best received by Northern European tourists, both English and German. Italians too, but they often criticize us, for example, for the hard beds. But anyone who comes here actually knows our concept. But if you expect a normal hotel with typical luxuries like a minibar and TV, then you will be disappointed. But fortunately, that doesn't happen very often.
The hotel operators are particularly proud of the fact that many real inhabitants have returned to the village thanks to the Albergo Diffuso. We're going to see if we can find any. And we come across this cafe. The operators are eager to show us how coffee was drunk in the good old days, before fully automatic stainless steel machines appeared everywhere. The brown cream is sugar whipped with coffee. This is used to grease the cups on the inside. Then, hand-ground espresso is poured into the cup. On top, very sweet whipped cream, not foamed milk.
It's really tasty.
We ask cafe owner Massimiliano what he thinks of the Albergo Diffuso. It's great. Our medieval village was completely forgotten until the tourists came. It's only thanks to them that it was possible to find work and live in such a small village again. In her wool shop, Valeria shows us how she dyes sheep's wool red with local wine, just as it was done here for centuries. She's also a great fan of the hotel project, and no wonder. She's increased her turnover tenfold in recent years, and she likes the tourists who come here.
The typical tourists who visit our village definitely want to get to know how we live. And sometimes they are even willing to get a real feeling for our way of life.
Getting a real feeling for this life is exactly what we want to do now. Sheep's cheese and wool used to be the main sources of income here, and shepherd is still a respected profession. Therefore, it's part of the hotel's program to go and visit the village shepherd Mimi and his family, a welcome additional income for him. It's very hard work. There are no holidays, no days off, nothing. You have to be born for it, otherwise you wouldn't be able to do this work. It may look easy to you, but it's not. It's almost more difficult than being a doctor.
Oh, man! Oh!
We notice that when we try to milk the sheep. Milk only flows after Mimi massages the udder.
Ah, I can do it.
I can't.
Soon, the poor sheep has had enough.
It's all right.
In the end, the milk is enough for a small sheep's cheese. For this, the shepherd's wife adds rennet to the heated milk, a natural enzyme that causes the milk to curdle. After an hour of work, the cheese made from our self-obtained milk is ready.
Tastes like sheep.
Immediately afterwards, we're off to a hotel baking course in a rebuilt original kitchen. Instructor Gabriela is also responsible for the hotel breakfast. In her baking courses, she teaches guests how to make the typical Italian flatbread focaccia. I think I'm doing something wrong. But it's not even that difficult. The dough consists only of flour, water and yeast, and lots of olive oil. Focaccia has also become very popular in Germany. In earlier times, the thin, flat bread was only used to test whether the wood-burning oven was hot enough for real large loaves of bread. So focaccia was actually just a kind of byproduct from this test. After only 20 minutes of baking, our focaccia are ready. The instructor is satisfied with us, or at least she says she is.
What does she say about ours? Beautiful. Is she just being polite? No, she's being honest. The work is so positive for me because you can live here in peace and quiet. It's not stressful work, you're not stuck in traffic jams like you're in the city, for example, and your whole life is pleasant and quiet.
A life so very different from what most of us are used to. Our impression after 2 days of time travel in the former ghost village? Here, they've killed 2 birds with 1 stone because everyone benefits, residents and hotel guests. Even our initially skeptical sound engineer is convinced.
Sebastian, now be honest and don't lie. How was it?
It was great. I slept really well, despite the hard bed. I didn't miss the TV, and the food was fantastic. It's a very different hotel.
With underfloor heating.
Taipei, metropolis and capital of Taiwan. The abandoned UFO village is said to be located just an hour outside the city. Our editor Linda Kerb is on the road with translator Sean Kaiteri. Sean lives in Taiwan, and he too has heard about this strange lost place. It's said to be in Wanli, a coastal town in the north of the island.
Doesn't look very lost here.
No, it's not that lost.
Only a few meters further on, at the edge of the city, the area is suddenly deserted. On a hill, we discover the first UFO house.
This looks like it's from an old science fiction movie.
Not only UFOs, but also futuristic angular buildings are standing here. There seems to be a whole village, run down, abandoned, and decaying. In many places, we find signs of past life. People actually used to live here. So why did they leave this place? Linda and Sean go looking for clues in one of the UFO houses.
Wow, the floor has fallen through. There's a huge hole down there.
Be careful when you go inside, there's no floor.
We still want to risk a look inside. At least through the locked door.
There are still bar stools there.
Was this an apartment? Or a pub? What happened here that turned it into a lost place? The village must have been empty for many years, considering how weathered everything looks. Our search for clues continues. The neighbouring UFO is more easily accessible and amazingly well preserved.
There's the window open, shall we try and get through that?
Oh, that's a good idea.
Can we find any clues in here as to why and when the residents left their homes?
The floor feels really weak.
The weather has also left its mark on the houses. The kitchen and the whole design is very retro and reminds us of the 1970s. Maybe this was supposed to be an expensive holiday resort by the sea. Next to the living area, Linda and Sean discover a former bedroom. Signs of life everywhere.
Even though there are still bed sheets and all kinds of cushions lying around, I don't think they had to leave in such a hurry, because the cupboards have been emptied. There's nothing left in the cupboards at all.
But what has to happen for someone to leave a place like this? Translator Sean, who's been living in the region for 15 years, has an idea.
To take a guess, it'd have to be something to do with the weather. Winter time, it's kind of cold, and heating this place would not be easy. And then summertime, it's super hot. It'd just be like living in a glass house. It's not brick. This stuff just going to absorb heat like nothing else.
Sean's assumption sounds plausible. In summer, thermometers in Wanli can hit the 40-degree mark. The outside walls and the whole bathroom seem to be made of plastic, not a good insulator. We look for clues as to how long this house has been abandoned.
A newspaper.
Can you see a date on that?
Maybe. Okay, March the 5th, 91, so maybe 15 years ago?
91?
91, well, in Taiwan years, 91.
Taiwan has a different calendar than we do. The so-called Mingguo calendar starts with the foundation of the country in 1912. So the last sign of life in the UFO house is 14 years old.
So if you're in the kitchen, I'm feeling kind of hungry, yeah?
What would you like to have for dinner, darling?
Steak and fries, please.
But the cupboards are empty, and there are only a few scraps stuck in the pot. So, no lunch for Sean. Something must have happened here 14 years ago to make the inhabitants leave the place. We decide to ask at the neighbouring hotel. Maybe someone there knows something about the lost place or its residents. Mrs. Chen, a member of the hotel staff, takes Linda and Sean to the roof terrace overlooking the UFO village. Has she heard anything about the history of this abandoned village?
A famous businessman built the village. He had a toothpaste and a soda factory. He built the village with a dream that people would come here.
What was it supposed to be? So why did he build this?
People were supposed to rent the houses for their holidays, but also buy them. But for most tenants, it was too hot and far too uncomfortable in summer. So they just didn't come anymore.
The UFO village seems to be a case of bad planning. Built in the early 1970s and abandoned bit by bit at the end of the 1970s. A holiday village by the sea was the vision of businessman Mr. Su Ming. It was supposed to be a holiday resort for the rich and beautiful. In the 1970s, the daily rent was supposed to have cost €135. Intended as a place of joy and life. Today, his vision is a lost place. But not only the weather is said to be responsible for all this. Behind the UFO village, we discover an overgrown cemetery. Taiwanese people are extremely superstitious, and they worship their ancestors. The general belief is that if a grave is not cared for, the spirits rise up again. Superstition. One of the reasons why people no longer wanted to live here. It even keeps many Taiwanese from going into the sea at certain times of the year.
Have a ghost month in the middle of summer where you cannot go near the water, you can't go near the beach. It's a time they believe the gates of hell have opened and all the ghosts are wandering the earth, especially all the ocean ghosts. People have died in shipwrecks, throughout history. So the worst place to go is in the water. So you don't go to the beach, you don't go swimming.
July, the hottest time of the year, is Ghost Month, when Taiwanese people choose to avoid their beaches. Not the best conditions for a holiday resort. Between the ruins, Linda and Sean suddenly discover a house that seems to be well preserved and knock on the beach house door. Who'd have thought it?
Can I inside and have a look? Oh wow.
Mr. Tao is a friendly host. He even turns on the heating for us. My house is very simple but cozy. I only have one room here and a small bathroom in the back. Visitors rarely stray to Mr. Tao. Maybe that's why he proudly shows us his little home with its original 1970s bathroom. The bathrooms are made of fiberglass, as are all the houses. The idea was to make everything as if from one piece. Mr. Tao has lived in Wanli for 30 years. He's been living in the UFO village for 6 years, rent-free, and is tolerated here by the authorities. I love the beach and the sea and all kinds of water sports. Living here is wonderful and very comfortable for me. In summer, Mr. Tao tells us, he rents out jet skis in the neighbouring hotel. In winter, he enjoys his free time here. The hot and rainy weather doesn't bother him. Air conditioning and dehumidifiers keep his house cosy. But Mr. Tao does seem to have barricaded himself in. It's almost as if he doesn't want to see the run-down lost place. 30 years ago, residents tried to keep their houses in order. They had nice, big, clean windows. It was generally very clean, but it was never quite perfect. Since the village was built, there were always problems. There was always something broken. And then deterioration set in, caused by the weather, which destroyed the place more and more. The inhabitants decided not to live here anymore and left their houses in an uninhabitable condition. And then, after 2 hours, Mr. Tao reveals, to our great surprise, that he's not the only resident living in the ruins. His neighbours, an elderly couple, are good friends of his. Mr. Tao even has a key to their house, which is monitored by CCTV.
This is what I call a typhoon door, right?
A door that protects the house from the stormy sea.
Oh wow.
What we see here, between all the abandoned and destroyed houses, is surprising. Mr. Tao's neighbour has built himself a luxury house, with expensive model planes, lots of high-tech, and a massage chair. All houses directly on the beach have such a cellar. Those further back don't. Actually, it should be a storage room, but my neighbour has made it into a comfortable living room. Mr. Tao tells us that the owner is a rich businessman who used to work in Hong Kong. He's been living in the UFO village with his wife for 15 years. Very secluded. The best thing about his kitchen here is the view. Whatever the reason why this man lives here in such a lost place, he's put a lot of money into his house. So far, he's had to spend over 80,000 euros on storm damage alone. In the past, there have often been problems with typhoons here. Water, sand, everything came in here and destroyed everything. My neighbour had to completely rebuild his living room. Originally, there were 93 houses in the UFO village. Today, only 2 are still inhabited. I think the inconvenience with the weather was the reason why most people left this place. But it's these very inconveniences that have a charm of their own for Mr. Tao. He likes the peace and quiet here. The peace and quiet between all the destroyed houses and the sea. I don't look at the mainland. I don't look there. I'm looking towards the sea, and it's perfect. Behind Mr. Tao's house are the final remains of a dream. Of a man and his vision to build a happy holiday village out of UFOs. Today, a unique lost place, which has become the home of loners and recluses.